Okay. First of all, thank you. I really appreciate all of your help once again. So last week I went and I interviewed Mavis Foote, one of our residents here. She was nice enough to let me interview her for my transcultural relationships class. Now, we visited about her past, her history, her family, her friends. At the end of it, she looks at me and says, "This has really brought up a lot of feelings, a lot of memories." As I left, I was overwhelmed with her feelings of loneliness. She's so alone. So many of our patients, our neighbors, are so alone. When I first gave this outline of my speech, I was going to talk about Mavis's culture. That's actually what my teacher is expecting. Little did she know how that overwhelming sense of loneliness would just really take over what I think you should hear today. Loneliness is a simple word, and it pulls at our heartstrings. Today, I want to talk about loneliness in the elderly. The actual health repercussions of loneliness, and some possible ways we could maybe consider helping that. So what is loneliness? The Oxford Dictionary describes loneliness as sadness. Sadness because you have no friends, company, or the quality of being isolated and remote. Psychology Today said that 43% of our elderly feel isolated, remote, and lonely. That is a lot of people. When you consider the number of residents we have in this facility, 43%, that's a lot of people. And you can see that written on their faces. But how can they feel lonely? They live together with 35 other people. They have staff to help them with their needs. They have staff to help them with their dishes, staff to feed them, staff to entertain them, staff to provide care for them. But they still feel lonely. There was actually a really interesting research project done by Thier and Associates. They said that because of the heavy workload for staff, the persuasive resident stereotyping, and the complex health conditions of residents, that the programming for recreation that we often provide is not necessarily appropriate or accessible to all of our residents, and that participation rates are often low because of that. They actually found that 43% of residents with dementia do not participate in any activities. 20% participate occasionally, and 12% actually go to activities just to go, even if they're not interested. Now, I'm sure our participation rates are higher because we do actually have some really good one-on-one programs, such as our Bible study and things like that. And of course, everybody loves bingo. Nothing replaces bingo. However, the sheer social interaction that happens there is not really deep and meaningful. It's just fun. Once again, loneliness and our staff. A study found that on a daily basis, a resident will only spend 2 minutes other than resident care talking to other neighbors or staff members in a 6-hour day. That means in 6 waking hours, you will spend 2 minutes talking to someone in a meaningful manner. I know that is not enough for me as a person to sustain and feel unisolated. If I could only talk for 2 minutes a day, right? I would feel completely out of place, completely alone. Given that, I see why they feel isolated. Okay, so they're lonely. So what? who at some point isn't? Why is this a big deal? Well, it's not only a mental health issue. Research has found that loneliness actually increases inflammation. It increases heart disease, diabetes, functional decline. There is a really interesting statistic, a big research project actually done in Britain, that showed that the mortality rate of people who are lonely is 2 times higher than the mortality rate of obesity and equal to the mortality rate of smoking. Loneliness is a big issue, a serious health issue. Loneliness can also increase behaviors in dementia patients. We have a lot of lonely people. You will all understand the reference of sunflower. We have a lot of lonely people. They wander and they're lost. So what can we do? I understand resources are limited. I understand that staff time is limited. That is the reality of work. Even in a grocery store, you can't find someone you need. That's the reality of life. However, this is their home. And we need to try to help provide something for them in their home. So there is no magic cure. But the first thing we should remember is that our neighbors are people. They have feelings. They need that daily interaction with each other and with us, but really with each other. Once loneliness sets in, people tend to dwell on the negative in life. They build a greater wall of isolation. They build a greater wall of, I don't want to come. I'm not going to that activity. So-and-so doesn't like me. This was horrible. That nurse made me mad. They build up this greater and greater wall of isolation so that they feel more lonely, and they build up a greater wall, and they feel more lonely, and they build up a greater wall. How do we break that down? Smile. Even if they're being a jerk. Because this is their home. And sometimes you have to smile even if your husband's being a jerk. We also need to think of some other activities that aren't just light social interaction. Crafts are amazing. And the cool thing about it is sometimes they can actually just start visiting. There is a very interesting new movement that's going on in British Columbia. It is called REAP, Resident Engagement and Peer Support. Studies are showing that these groups of people, residents, neighbors, are getting together, groups of 4 to 10 people with no agenda, with no direction, just visiting, just sitting and talking to each other and supporting each other. When a new resident comes in, they are put in a group of people with similar interests. It's a lot of work. I understand that. Once again, our resources are limited. The research on it is very new. However, it's working. People are getting that one-on-one human interaction with each other, with the people they live with and see every day. Not just with staff, not just bingo, but a truly meaningful relationship that they can build on not just that 1 hour a day, 1 hour a week, 1 hour a month, but at supper or when they see each other in the hall. Okay, so how does this help our dementia people? Because not necessarily everyone with dementia can still interact that same way anymore. Well, research has actually found that people with dementia hear what you're saying. They can follow the trains of conversation. They might not be able to participate, but they hear it. They know what you're saying. They know what's being talked about around them. Sometimes they may comment. Sometimes they may try to participate in a way that's not really appropriate, but they're getting something to feel like they matter The other really interesting thing is they found that in the groups of people, if you have a mixed group of people, 1 or 2 with dementia, 1 or 2 that are more cognitive, a wide variety of people, that fosters a feeling of brotherhood, of sisterhood, a bonding of taking care of your peers. That encourages, just by a simple touch and handshake in a group setting, for them to visit that person in the hall. It would be possible for Jim to visit Tessie, to touch her shoulder and say, I hope you're having a good day. Even if she doesn't always know what's going on, that might help her feel less alone. Anyway, I understand it's very different. As I sat and visited with Mavis, like I said, I realized how lonely they are. I'm using her name simply because she said it was all right. But there's so many here that are lonely. There's so many here that would love to bond again with each other, to feel needed, to feel wanted, to feel helpful. I hope that today you are now more aware of how prevalent loneliness is. 43%. Think of that. Think of our numbers. 43%. I hope you are far more aware that it's not just a mental health issue. It is a very physical issue. The mortality rates alone are outrageous. Loneliness being equal to smoking, one of our biggest killers. Yeah. I hope that you are aware of how important social bonding is, how important it is for people to feel like people, for our neighbors to feel like people, wanted, needed, loved, and not lonely. Thank you for your time. We do actually have some really deep research on it.